god. Honestly, I think it's just Sekiro. Sekiro is just a heavy game to stream. And it keeps crashing. So welcome back everyone, welcome back! I hope your day is as wonderful as you are. Oh my god, 30 ball is such a liar. Okay. Okay, we try this again. Take that back, Shen? No! What do you mean? Take it back down? No. No. Starting better? Okay. Oh! Okay. Good. Damn, 663 death. Didn't you have 540? Yeah, I did. I did.
Sekiro.
Whoa. Yeah. That one doing slapping jelly was so much fun.
Oh. No! That's okay. No! 664. Oh my god. Gamble all? You lost your 75 points. Okay, we gambling again? We gambling again. I won. Okay. 664. Okay. Oh, welcome in, Phantasma. Welcome. Oh, I got here late. Looks like you're about to beat the game after only a few more times. Yeah. Surely. Just like 1 or 2 more times, you know. I'm almost there. She started tonight at 6:17. It's okay. You know? So how are you? How was your day? How have you been? Thank you for the head pass. Thank you.
れがアシナを生かす。
Oh. Oh, I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead. Oh, please. Please, I'm not ready, I'm not ready. Okay. This is good, this is good. So Shay, once you finish this, when is the next Souls game? I thought I answered this already. Like after this, the next Souls game that I really want to play is Lies of P. Yeah. Oh. Rude. Okay, okay. Okay, okay, okay. This is good. This is good. This is really good. This is really good. Okay, parry time, parry time. Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay. Oh, the edge. I'm scared! Oh my god! This fight is so hard! I don't know how to fight this fight. You're on the stream like once a week, so it's harder to remember. I'm sorry! Actually, I was thinking of streaming like... Okay, this week, I was thinking of like streaming like every night. Besides tomorrow, okay? Like besides tomorrow, like stream Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll probably take Thursday off. Friday, Saturday, you know? I was thinking. But I don't know. I don't know what to stream though. I'm in an acceptable state today. Got peanut butter for the bread, salsa for the chips. Sounds good. Not gonna lie, unpopular opinion, I don't really like peanut butter on bread. I'm more of a jelly person. Yeah. Even though it's like peanut butter and jelly, I don't really like peanut butter on bread specifically, you know? I don't know. I texture, like it's like super like sticky, you know? Shen is now a dog confirmed? Of course I'm not. I'm a goat. I tell you, Isha was hard. Yeah, I can see that now. I thought I voted in the prediction. I thought I put 2-1-2 or no. Oh, did she vote yes? I got no advice for this fight. Is either get good or bash your head against the wall until the wall breaks. Okay, thank you. I don't hate peanut butter though. I just don't like it on bread specifically, you know? You're sticky? What do you mean by that, huh? What do you mean by that? I am sad, but I will accept your rejection of peanut butter. On bread specifically, okay? Just peanut butter on bread. Okay? Just specifically peanut butter on bread. So what do you eat peanut butter with then? Oh, nothing really. I think like I've only eat peanut butter if it's like made into like a sauce, you know, like a dipping sauce. Cause like in a lot of like Asian culture we have like the spicy peanut sauce, and like in the spicy peanut sauce it's just like peanut butter with like chili and like fish sauce, yada yada. These nuts with these. He swears in that last phrase, Shen. Just wait till you get there. Okay. I'm looking. Okay. Stop chasing me. Okay. This is good. Oh, I thought you were spoonfuls of peanut butter kind of lady. No. Don't get me wrong. I am a spoonful of Nutella kind of lady. Oh, welcome, man, Kayla. Welcome. How are you, Kayla? How is your night? I've tried to stick a celery and put peanut butter on that crevice part. It was kind of good. Really? I feel like celery with peanut butter. Like I know everybody does that. I feel like it's just. I don't know. Celery is such a like plain taste, you know. Some people apparently put raisins on the peanut butter and celery and call it ants on the log. Why celery though? I've never like imagined celery to be like a snack. Not snack, but like dessert kind of vegetable, you know? I'm good. How about you, Shen? You're probably suffering right now? Yeah, I've been going at this for like almost 4 hours now, I think. Spoonful of Nutella. Put those two words together. Okay. Oh, I just got my ass beat. Okay. Immediately. Okay. Okay. This one.
行ってきた。行くぞ、Sekiro。
Oh my god. Oh yeah, the clock on me. Ooh. He pulled a 9. What's my 9mm gold thing? Oh. Oh my god! This one's so hard! Literally so hard to beat! What the heck? Oh my god. Lucky number 666. Oh my god. Good, just been laying in bed for a while. Got too lazy to get on. Oh, Kayla! Kayla, you know what? You should definitely play Marvel Rivals. Yeah, I'd be so down to play Marvel Rivals. Issue the Sword Saint, Secret Martial Technique, Semi-Automatic Pistol. God, I hate this! I hate the gun! Why does he have a gun? Why do you have a gun? God damn. God, you must beat this boss. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. Thank you for the head pass. Speaking of rivals, you almost won above all rank yet? No, the last season I was like stuck diamond for the longest, and then right now, okay, my goal for this season for Marvel Rivals is to get at least Grandmaster. At least. Okay.
俺がアシナを生かす。
Oh, what the hell? Oh. Okay, bad start. This is a bad start. Oh. Oh.
その力だ。
Not lucky number 66. This is why we play Ring Valorant. Honestly, Ring Valorant is I was just like complaining about this earlier when I was playing Marvel Rivals. Like in Marvel Rivals rank, people would troll, literally troll. Like literally troll so bad, and like they start arguing with you because they're a troll, you know? And they will like literally purposely throw. But then like in Valorant, people will get angry. People will get angry because you suck, you know? Like it's justifiable in Valorant is what I'm trying to say. Oh. Oh, okay. Focus, Jen. Focus. Okay. They play COD? I could never play COD. Oh. Honestly, I could probably play COD, but like, I don't know. It's been so long since I touched like Call of Duty. Okay. If Shen talking Call of Duty, she'll probably get hate crime right away. Yeah, exactly, you know? How many sandwiches would she... Probably a lot! 20, probably more, minimum. Okay, this part is getting easier now. This part is getting so easy now. Oh. Okay, it's always this part here. Oh my god! I always just die right away. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. This is the last of my water. I'm gonna have to grab another bottle in a bit. Okay, 668. I kind of want Shen to play COD with a voice chat now and hear what happens. No. She can just claim to be a 13-year-old boy to say racist slur to suit the role. No. Oh my god, maybe we should. Maybe I should stream. Oh, Sea of Thieves. It's like the one game I refuse to talk in game chat. That one game? What game? Shen play COD with mic on? No, I'm too scared. I can barely even play Valorant with mic. Okay. Oh! 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 Ah, shit! I fell! I died instantly? It doesn't just spawn me back? What the hell? What the heck? What the heck? What the heck? The paddock was funny? I'm so sad I didn't get your clip and you missed the microphone. Sea of Thieves. Oh, Sea of Thieves. We were playing against like people, and like the ship was chasing us, and like me, Kayla, was the only two on the ship, and we have nothing. We have literally nothing on the ship. We were poor. We just got into it, and this ship was started chasing us and like shooting us, and we were like sniping back at them, and like Kayla's mic wasn't working, so I was using my mic to like shout back at them. And I was like, please, please don't shoot us. We're poor. We have nothing. It was funny. Okay. This. Do this. I'm so sad I didn't get that clip. Yeah, Chaos left us. Chaos left us to go to an island. While me and Kayla tries to save the boat. Oh. Okay. Oh. 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 Okay. 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 That's okay. That's okay. No, what's even funnier? Me and Kayla, when we first died, we found this little rowboat. And we got on it and we tried to attack the ship that killed us. That was really funny. We died instantly. We died instantly. Okay, okay. Attempt again. This is it. This is it. Oh, I'm getting hit now. Oh God. Argo, Shen, Argo! Argo. That's okay. That's okay.
その力だ
Okay! No!
すべきことがある
Oh,
さらば
oh god. It's like a bike versus a tank. Yeah, a bike versus a tank. Thank you for the redeem. Thank you. God damn, everybody's dying. Everybody's rotting. Just camping out on the island overnight while they're circling it, getting shot while Shen's pleading for her life, and then they come back again after Shen's begging for the enemy. Yeah. After I was begging, like the enemy ship got set on fire. I don't know why. It was because they left, right?
黒ぞ俺がアシナを生かす
Wanna go? Oh, okay.
その力だ
This is my focus. Okay. Crisscrossing. Robot revenge. Okay. Again.
俺がアシナを生かす
Ooh. Ow!
踏みにじらせはせぬぞ
Okay. This is good.
参れ関野
Oh, no fear. It was on the edge. My weakness. Edging. Okay. Okay. It's this part that fucks me up the most. This part here.
たぎってきた。行くぞ、セキロ。
Okay. Push my 9mm, go bang! Oh, okay. So scary! Oh, where's he? Shit. Okay. No! Hesitation is defeat. I got it. You don't gotta tell me. As in, yeah. Oh my god. I really hope she does. So tough. Holy damn. The only advice for phase 2 and phase 3 is just get good. Get good. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Hey.
Kuro-sama.
Kuro-sama. Kuro-sama. Hi. Nani ga suki?
俺がアシナを生かす。
Oh, what a loser. What a loser.
踏みにじらせはせぬぞ。
Okay.
入れ、関野。
Okay. 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 Get this over with. Next fight. Next fight. Next fight.
たぎってきた。行くぞ、関野。
Okay. Oh. Ouch. Okay, I have to time it right. Ow! Where did he go? Where did he go? Where did he go? Where did he go? The other! Damn.
Never be afraid to rub your meat. I love rubbing and touching my meat and all the cracks and crevices.
What the hell? What the heck is that, Chaos? Oh no, Chaos ending? I misread. Chaos is insane. I didn't go anywhere near that good. Yeah, right? Chaos only got like under 200 death. Yeah. You just know he doesn't touch grass. I never get good. I did the other strategy I suggested to Shen. Bash your head into the wall, bro. Not as bad as the monkey one, but funny. Oh god, no. Okay, 6, 7, 4. 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4, 6, 7, 4. Not gonna lie, I got lucky when I fought Ishin. Damn. Okay, okay.
俺がアシナを生かす。
Oh, fuck. Okay. Mm.
その力だ。
675, 675. Okay. 675. 675. The thing I like the most about Sekiro over the other Souls games that you can just level up your way past the boss. Oh, you can do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I do that. Oh, I can't get hit by that. Ouch! Oh my god. Ouch! Okay. Okay, Shenlock it, Shenlock it, Shenlock it. No, no! Oh god. No! 6, 7, 6. Shen play Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3? How about no? Oh my god. Shit, I admire you so much. No, stop it! Stop glazing me! Do I look like a donut to you? Do not glaze me. Okay. Okay. Nice. Okay, good. Okay, good, good. Okay, okay. Good, good.
Sekiro.
Come here, come here. Okay, I'm cooking. I'm cooking here. I'm cooking here. I'm cooking here. Hold on. What the hell? I was behind a rock! I was behind a rock. Are you kidding me? Oh my god. Oh my god. Scary. Oh damn. Oh my god. Okay. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Why is this so hard? Why is this so hard? I can't get near him at all. How about Elden Ring, Night Ring, and a lot of followers who don't show up very often like me to join you? Let's see. I've never played Elden Ring though. I don't know. I don't think I'm ever gonna play Elden Ring. We'll see. We will see. We will see. So you want to spoil it for Phase 3? Sure, sure. Sure, give it to me. Give it to me. But you can't approach him. Be close enough for him to approach you. Be close enough for him to approach me. But then, like, he doesn't even approach me. He just smacked me from far away with his goddamn gun, or like his spear. I hate it so much. The devs knew how much you like lightning, so they added lightning to his attacks on the third phase. You know, I kinda like already predicted that. Like once I started seeing like the storm coming in, you know, on the clouds and stuff, the thunder, so freaking loud in my ears. I kind of like realized that, like, oh, we're gonna have to use lightning at one point, at a certain point.
せはせぬぞ。
Okay.
参れ、関野。
Jesus Christ, Grandpa. Oh my god! Oh my god, why he's so aggressive now? Jesus Christ! Guys, oh shit, oh shit. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? Where is he? Okay. Oh my god. Me must go night night now. Have a great night. Shano, goodbye. You got this trust. Your baby for 700 death. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you. Rest well. Good night. Make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closets, because I'm gonna lurk. Thank you for coming by. Suddenly he pulls his giant spear out of the ground and a gun out of nowhere and calls in the storm like he's texting his girl. Yeah. Why is nobody questioning, like, why does he have a gun, huh? He's a grandpa, isn't he? Like, he's the grandfather. Why does he have a gun? Why? Still wondering where he got the gun. Was Genichiro carrying it? Yeah, like, no way. Like, Geni wasn't carrying it, right?
俺がアシナを生かす。
He has a whole ass bow. Oh. Oh. Okay.
参れ、関野。
Oh, okay. Okay. 6, 7, 8. With no flashbacks. Did he just shut out useful weapons? His spirit chases for a spear to halberd too. Oh my god. Gramps, I bought this funny looking toy, but I don't get how to reload it. However, you know how to reload it? You cock it. you know. What's the game called? What's that game called? What's that one game called? I forgot. Oh god, I forgot the game. Oh, Cyberpunk. And like Cyberpunk, you have to like put your headphone jack inside like you have to put like your headphone jack in like things in order to like get information, right? And like whenever I played it, I was like, I'm checking it. I'm checking it, guys. Ah, okay. Oh my god, I gotta stop getting hit by that. Oh. I'm burning out. You were so proud of that cocky that I couldn't hit. It was funny. It was such a good joke. Also, that's not how you reload it. I'm cocking it. Like when you cock a gun, does that not mean like reloading? Oh. 6, 7, 9. Maybe even reloading after emptying the mag technically? Oh. No, cocking the gun is just putting a bullet into the chamber. Oh! Okay. Putting a bullet into the chamber. Wouldn't that still consider like reloading? No? You can cock the hammer on pistols? No? Guys, I don't know guns, okay? I'm just a girl, okay? Try this again. Oh fuck. Please don't take me! I died. Oh, okay. That was a really bad start. 680. Reloading usually means you want to change the magazine for the gun. Oh, also I don't know if racking the sight is considered cocking it. Oh. Play COD will teach you. Yeah, my reloading is implying that you're putting more bullets into the gun itself. The bullet in the chamber is just moving it for the mag. Okay. When your gun jams during the reload, it's called a cock. A cock block. Good one. Pretty funny. You're pretty funny, Crimson. I'm gonna follow you home. I don't think that's true, but I like it.
俺がアシナを生かす。
Okay, I'm locked in. Oh. Okay. Okay.
参れ、関野。
Ouch. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, I'm stopping here. Oh. Why won't he die already? Oh my god. How I'm blocking your attic? So she's following you back to her place? How does that work? Okay, I need focus. Oh my god. Bridge. This is so tough, so tough. 681. Like she's not home right now. You're right, mommy. Now's our chance. We gotta find others. No, wait. Okay. You guys think you could get out, huh? She's still crouched like a gremlin. Just checked. I'm watching you, huh? I'm watching you. You think you could leave me? Sitting like Elle from Death Note.
俺がアシナを生かす。
Oh Oh. Ow! Jeez. He's gonna make me. Okay, I'll go. Oh.
逃がせはせぬぞ
Okay. Oh. Oh.
その力だ
She gagged me with something soft. I don't know what it is. Her noose, the sock. Just behave. See, guys, you guys talk like this. This is why every time when I do like a collab with like shared chat, I tell you guys to behave yourself because of this. Okay, because of this.
開ける入れ関野
Oh. I'm dead.
迷えば破れる
We do behave. I refuse to behave. But right now we are in shared channel, so okay. You know that is true. But when we were, okay, you guys gotta behave yourself. Mom, don't give in. Stay decent. You can't make me. You know what? I have streamer power. Okay? I can ban the mod.
俺がアシナを生かす
Okay. Oh! Okay. Oof. Big oof.
その力 踏みにじらせはせぬぞ
Okay. Oh! I'm losing my touch.
さ
I'm
ら
losing my touch. I still play all the I'm in your closet. What that mean? And I have to do everything you say or I get pegged. You don't want to get pegged? The B word she just said, very B word. The feeling when you hang out in a known kidnapper's house, but the prisoners are laughing their heads off in the attic. They're crazier than me, you know? No, I do not want to get pegged. Why not? Maybe you like it. Crazy? I was crazy once. They locked me in the room. A rubber room full of rats. Sean, you talking shit about Barry again? No, I love Barry. The guy who backstabbed me.
久しい巫女の忍び俺がアシナを生かす
Okay, I'm locked in. Everybody be quiet. Oh, what the hell? Okay.
Aire, Sekiro.
Ooh, tough. FBI, open up! Okay. Oh. Rude. Oh, I blame the rock. Not the Wayne, the rock. The little rock right there. Ow! Okay. Ooh! No! Okay. No, you kidding me? No, you kidding me? He didn't even let me get up. Jesus Christ. 684. Oh my god. Well, my phone's about to die and I'm gonna sleep soon. Good luck, bald lady. Good night, chat. And just cause. Oh, and Shen, just cause. What is that? A pumpkin? Pumpkin these nuts! In your mouth. I'm sorry. Good night. Rest well. Wishing you lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closet. Cause I'm gonna like. Bye bye, mom. Also, thank you for the follow, girl. Where's beanies? I love beanies. Oh my god, welcome. How are you? How is your day? Right now, I am playing some Sekiro. Wait, did I add a number to the death counter? I did already, right? No? I'm just gonna add another one. Okay. Okay. I heard pumpkin these nuts and I was sold. Yeah. I love it. I see you are also a person of taste. Another person of good humor.
俺がアシナを生かす
Come on. Oh, whoop, I missed out. Oh, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Ah! Thank you for the head pass. Thank you, thank you. Oh, wrong one, wrong one. Okay. Oh fuck. I keep thinking he's gonna like swing at me. Okay. Oh, jab again. Oh! Wait, I've never seen that before.
俺にもなすべきことがあるさらばだ
6, 8 to 6. When she said taste, keep in mind, she tastes red flags. I mean, I love the color red. I love the color red. Okay, we try this again. Speed run,
俺
speed
が
run.
アシナを生かす
Okay. Oh shit! I saw that one coming to you. Oh.
海にじらせはせぬぞ
Okay. Okay, okay. By red, she means the blood of her enemies. In game, in game. Yeah, in game.
参れ関野
Sekiro. Okay. Okay. Okay, okay. Phase 3.
たぎってきた行くぞ関野
How do I fight him? How? Okay. I'm scared! I'm scared! He hit me so hard! Okay. Oh god! Okay, okay. He's just gonna constantly chase me, shoot me. I'm burning out. I've been at this for way too long. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, speed run.
俺がアシナを生か
Come
す
on, hurry. Oh! Ouch!
海にじらせはせぬぞ
Oh! Oh! Okay! It's not done.
関野
No! Okay, you know that's fine. Come here! Let's get away from the edge. Come on. Come on! Come on! Come on! Over here! Come on! Oh. No! I died. 688. 688. Those who live in poisonous areas have a very high resistance to the poison status. Abnormal. Okay. Okay. You know what? What time is it? It's been 1 hour, 30 minutes. Okay.
「俺がアシナを生かす」
Oh, okay. Oh shoot.
「海にじらせはせぬぞ」
Oh shit. Okay, here we go. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you for the hair pants. I was gonna say I'll probably end it at like the 2-hour mark. Which is like 30 minutes.
参れ関野
Okay. right here. Hard part right here. I don't know how I'm gonna hit him. Oh! Don't hit me, please. Oh my god! How can I touch him? Appropriately. Ouch! What the heck? Okay. Oh my god! It's so tough! It's so tough! Just try to go Argo. But I feel like I can't even hit him! I can't even hit him! Once I get like super close to him, he just like beats my ass. 6, 8, and 9. 6, 8, 9. Also, thank you for the hydrate! Okay. Take a little break. Little break. I'm gonna go grab a water bottle and use the bathroom. I'll be back. BRB! BRB! Also, you lost all 120 points. Loser. BRB.
That was a creamy one.
Okay, I am back! Thank you for the blurb. Thank you, thank you. I got a fresh, cold water bottle. Okay. Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready. I am ready. This is the one. I can feel it. This is the one. Okay. Just keep playing Orgo. Aggressive. I feel like third phase, I just get too scared.
俺がアシナを生かす
Okay? Ah. Okay! Easy! Easy.
参れ関野
Okay. Come on. Okay.
2 hours later.
2 hours later. Leave for the black. Okay. This is good. Lightning there. Lightning there. Argo! Okay, that killed me. That freaking killed me. Can I jump over that? Is that possible? Ah! I'm stuck. Oh, okay. Oh my god, okay. No! Is that always a jab? No! How long is that? Did I just run away with that? Okay. I'm guessing. Okay, when he does his little sling, I just run, Shen. Just run. Okay, 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 okay. Okay, 690. Oh my god, only 10 more before I hit 700. It's gonna be so tough.
俺がアシナを生かす
Okay, speed run. Okay. 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 This is good.
参れ関野
Okay. Oh. Okay. This part drive me nuts.
たぎってきた行くぞ関野
What the heck? What the heck? I died instantly. Oh my god, I can't. Okay, it's so hard to like tell what he's gonna do. Oh my god. This one is so hard. Why is it so hard? Oh. 691. Okay, okay. Try this again. Trying this again for the 600th time.
俺がアシナを生かす
Okay. So I'm angry now. I'm angry now. Okay. I'm pumped. I'm pumped now.
参れ関野
Oh. Oh, Faye, you on the edge. You on the edge. Ooh! Okay. Okay. Okay.
たぎってきた。行くぞ、関野。
Oh. Oh. What the hell? The Glock. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, please. Thank you for mercy. Oh god. Hesitation is defeat. I'm not hesitating, but you keep shooting me. Please. It's tough. This is so hard. I died like less than 1 minute. Okay, okay, okay. Okay. I'm angry. I'm angry and I'm pumped.
俺がアシナを生かす。
I'm angry and I'm pumped. Oh, what the heck? Oh my god. Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ! Oh. Oh my god. Okay. Okay. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Where am I? Where am I? There's so much. Oh! Edge. I'm scared. Posture, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god! I can't do this no more. I can't do this no more. 69-3. We run it back! Woohoo! We run it back! Woohoo! Okay. You haven't hit 700 yet? I probably will in the next 10 minutes. Okay, I'm tired of seeing this cussing. Okay.
Sekiro.
Oh my god! Okay, now how the hell do I do the second one? Oh, dirt face. Oh! 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 Okay. I can hear the button smashing. Okay. I think I got it. I think I got it. Can I do it before 700? No, but I think I got it. Oh, welcome in, Vento. Welcome. NC, thank you. How are you? How is your day? Did you stream today? How was your stream? God, I'm having like... This game is giving me a headache. Literal brain rot right now. Okay, we try this again. We try this again. Come on. Okay.
Sekiro.
Come on. Oh. Ouch. Oh, ouch. Okay. Oh. Oh my god! Literally one health. Oh my god, nothing is wrong with me! Oh my god. No! Hey, I'm good. The OBS doing a little funky for me, so I cut screen short. How goes your gaming? It looks really good so far. Damn, so bad for OBS. Yeah, my OBS crashed earlier too. It's okay. Also, my gaming... It's been good. I've been fighting the same guy for like... I don't know, like almost 5 hours now. Literally, it feels great. Also, thank you for the redeem. Thank you. Apparently, you can use the firecracker on him. Also, the umbrella would be good if upgraded. Oh, I can use firecracker. Hold on. I wanna. I could use firecracker. I don't have any fire emblems. I have one coin. Is there a... Okay, we're gonna farm for some emblems. Can I go up there? 5 hours in this fight? This is wonderful. Yeah, he's the last boss too. So the final boss. So it's kind of destroying my nerves. Oh. Is there any enemies here? Oh. Oh, get my ass beat by NPCs. Oh my god. You know what? I'm just gonna leave. Dowsing powder. Dowsing powder. Oh. Whoops. Wait, can I still sell like my? I can, right? Okay, okay. Where is the merchant? The nearest merchant. Temple? 5 hours and nearly 80 deaths later. 6 more deaths and I win 510 points. Okay, oh man. Let me sell my stuff to you. What do you have? Like coin purse? Okay. Okay. Okay, now where is it? Oscars. Is it at Ashina Castle? Can you upgrade any tools? Oh, you're right, you're right. Forgot. Rage quit? I'm not gonna rage quit. Not yet. Maybe after 5 more deaths. I'll give it 5 more deaths. Okay. If I don't beat him at number 700, that's it for today's stream. I need a break. Holy. A great tool. I don't think I have enough. What is this? 600? I missed it all. 600 for firecrackers? Wait, no, I can't. It's not even unlocked, is it? I have to unlock this. So much for being a crack gamer. Crack as in broken. Okay, this is not gonna work out. We're just gonna have to wing it. Okay, secret passage. 5 more deaths, more like 5 more hours. God, I hope not. I hope not. Oh God. Okay. 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 I'm ready. I'm focused. I'm locked in. Shen, be quiet. No more talking. Just shut up and lock in. Okay.
俺がアシナを生かす
Oh. 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 Ouch. 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 Oh. Okay. Okay.
Sekiro.
See, you see that? You killed me, Crimson. See? Okay. Okay, we're gonna test out the firecrackers. I'm on healed though.
たぎってきた行くぞ
Oh my god! Oh my god! That didn't work! Ouch! Ouch! Okay. Hesitation. Okay. You're gonna tell me all the time. Shina Reservoir. Okay, 696. 696. Okay, I'm crisscrossing, applesaucing. Yeah, it started for a second. I think the first time I missed. Thank you for the bug! Thank you! Welcome in, Nico! Welcome! How are you? How is your day?
俺がアシナを生かす
I know! I'm battling! Oh god, I messed up. I'm fighting the final boss! Oh, back up. Oh! Are you kidding me?
そ
Okay.
の力だ 踏みにじらせはせぬぞ
Oh my god. 697. Any luck? Oh, I would have some if you would give me some, please. She's been dying for a while ever since I showed up tonight. Yo, I've been dying all night. Dying to see you. Ouch. Thank you for the thank you for the redeem. Thank you. You don't want my luck, dear Shen? Why not? You think your luck is worse than mine? Don't you see how many times I died?
黒そば俺がアシナを生かす
Okay. Okay. I didn't know if it is, but my luck is pretty bad and I'd rather not risk it. It's okay. I'll take every little crumb you have. Anything is better than nothing, right?
参れ関野
Come here. Oh, that was bad. That was really bad. That was really bad. Okay. Okay. Come on. Okay. Oh. Oh. Okay. Yeah. No! Okay. That was good. That was good. That was good. That was good. I think I'm getting hit too much. That's okay. Okay. Speed run, speed run!
生かす
Okay. Oh! Oh! I hate you so much. Okay.
参れ関野
Ouch! 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 What the heck? Oh my god, it's not letting me breathe! God damn! Okay, last one, guys. last one. Okay. Thank you for the headpants. Thank you for the hydrate. Thank you. Okay. Okay, this is it. This is it. This is it. Okay, Shen lock in. Shen lock in. Shen lock in.
俺がアシナを生かす 海にじらせはせぬぞ
Oh! Back up, back up. Okay.
その力が
Oh! I hate you so much. I hate you so much for that. I hate you so much. Cheeser. Okay.
参れ関野
Okay. This one. This is the hard one.
たぎってきた
No, don't fall. We want to come over here. God, the amount of time I fell off the edge on this fucking stream. No! GG's, guys. GG's. GG's. Number 700. Number 700. Oh god. Oh god. You know what, everyone? It was a good run. It was a good one. Technically, like my first fight. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I think I got some good progress, you know? Efficient mailed. It was good. It was good. You know what? We're gonna continue this my next Sekiro stream. Okay. I will say, I might be streaming Tuesday though. Maybe Tuesday. And we are gonna play Poppy Playtime 4! Poppy Playtime Chapter 4! Yes! 929 goes to Crimson. Did you play the other Poppy games? Yeah, I played 1, 2, 3 already. Yeah. And then 4 came out, and then I just haven't played 4 yet. And then I bought 4 during the summer sale. Yeah. And I just haven't touched it. Yes, yes. Oh. Wait, I think I remember this. Yeah, you were there, weren't you? Shit, I don't know. But this week, I'm gonna try to stream a lot. I'm gonna try to. Try to doesn't mean I'll actually do it though, but I will try to. Also, I wanna do like another like I haven't played Valorant in so long, and I really want to stream Valorant. So I asked Kayla like yesterday if she wanted to play Valorant with me, and I don't know who else I'm gonna invite. Probably Moose. I don't know. But yeah. But then like I kind of want to do another Marvel Rivals stream. Well, we'll see. We will see. Ah, Crimson has 0 points. Oh, at least he's not last. At least you're not last. Wait, how many points do I have? Oh wait, oh. Points. Oh, 660 points. Okay, what place am I at? Oh, am I above Crimson? I'm above you, right? Add points? Did it work? I don't think it worked. Oh, see? Crimson, I'm better than you. You're below me, loser. Alright. Shen's top. Yeah, I'm a top, guys. Alright. You know what? I'm probably just gonna end it here. I don't know. Tia's not streaming, so I don't have anybody to raid. And like, I don't know. I don't know a lot of these people personally, you know? And I'm kind of shy. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You know, we just end it here. I had to figure it out. Okay, chaos. Oh, chaos last. You're last on the leaderboard. Oh my god. Okay. Thank you all for coming by. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for the follows and for the resub. I hope you have a good night, good day, good evening. Next stream will probably be playtime. And I might continue Sekiro like on the weekend again. We'll see. Anyways, make sure you lock your doors, lock your windows, lock your closet, because I'm gonna learn. Wink, wink. Bye bye everyone. Paul, have a good night. Bye bye poggers. Bye bye. Bye bye. Okay, bye.